dentists must build a personal brand. They also must make content. There's no way around it.
We love dentistry. We're passionate about it. But when you're like, oh, I just have to work on this computer, I just have to like have meetings with people, like it's so much easier than dentistry. And I think nobody talks about that.
You got a crooked smile, well that don't bother me much. You double over working double time, you double tough. I'll just shine it up until the sun hit like a glare. I gotta dare, get the fuck up out the chair.
Dr. Jonathan Snow has a unique story, transitioning from practicing orthodontist to digital marketer, serving as the co-founder and chief innovation officer of Avenue Z. While Jonathan served as a general dentist and captain in the U.S. Air Force, he built an affiliate marketing platform that generated 9 figures in revenue within 2 years. This led him to creating the Snow Agency, a full-service digital marketing agency. In this episode, you'll learn Jonathan's tips on how dentists can turn their passion into a thriving business by focusing on what you love and letting go of tasks that drain your energy. Learn why Jonathan's #1 tip for professional success is to build a personal brand through consistent, engaging content that connects with your ideal audience. You'll get Jonathan's tips on how to step out of your comfort zone and see beyond the daily grind so you can focus on the bigger opportunities. Welcome back to The Happy Dentist. How did this all evolve from orthodontist to marketer?
Tired of bouncing between ClinChecks, refinements, and Invisalign bills? Serving patients is what you do best. Leave the back and forth to us. With TwoFront, you get to unwind, fully automate your Invisalign practice, and watch your patients receive the highest level of care without losing any control. From closing your patients to designing ClinChecks, managing insurance and compliance, your TwoFront team does it all. Think of it as a splash of simplicity. Use one simple platform to have full visibility of your patients in treatment. Dentists and orthodontists across 150 practices have jumped in, seeing their Invisalign production soar without adding any extra chair time. TwoFront members have seen a 350% increase in production, adding over $100,000 in profit to their bottom line. Whether you're on the court or in the office, TwoFront helps you ace your goals. See how TwoFront can transform your practice. Visit mytwofront.com/Ingrid to book your demo and dive in today.
Yeah, so it's a really long story. I'll try to keep it short. But before I was an orthodontic resident, I actually served in the Air Force as a general dentist for 3 years. That's kind of where my marketing journey got started. I was stationed in the middle of nowhere in Shreveport, Louisiana, in the deep south. Had nothing to do there. This isn't like New Orleans. This is literally in the middle of nowhere. So the days would start at 7 a.m. They would end at 3 p.m. I'd get home. It was before I was even married. Had nothing to do at the end of my day. And my brother, who was ironically studying to become a dentist, he was already about to enter dental school, but he had an idea, and he came to me with the idea to build an affiliate marketing platform for Instagram influencers. This is back in 2014. And so he was building these big Instagram pages back in the day, very early on. So his biggest page still exists today. It's extremely successful, at Rap, R-A-P. It's a hip hop media company. They have over 20 million followers across Instagram and TikTok, and he was building all these other niche pages. He had reggaeton, he has a gamer page, all these different audiences he was building. And he identified very early on that influencer pages were not yet being monetized. So people with large followings on social media, we can place ads on those pages and make a ton of money, essentially. And so I was like, okay, sounds interesting. I'll kind of help you build that platform. And that just led into getting really deep in the influencer game, started working with every Instagram influencer you could think of, and drove 9 figures in revenue through that platform within 2 years of launching it, purely from Instagram influencer posts for affiliate offers for e-commerce brands. Then we had this massive network. We started launching our own e-commerce brands. We had 9 brands at our peak. We ended up building a huge team, running our own warehouse, fulfilling thousands of orders a day, got deep into paid media and all the other elements of marketing. And over the years, we developed a reputation. Clients started coming in, asking if we could run their marketing because they saw what we were doing for our own brands. During that time, I wasn't ready to just, leave dentistry. I went to dental school to become an orthodontist. So at the end of my 3-year commitment with the Air Force, started orthodontic residency, moved back to the Northeast, went to Maimonides Medical Center. And it was juggling being a hospital resident, commuting 3 hours round trip from New Jersey to New York City every day, but still were scaling my brands, taking on clients. And during the last 6 months of residency, I was under contract to buy an orthodontic practice in New York, and COVID hit during due diligence. So couldn't even open an orthodontic clinic in New York City during COVID. As we all know, elective treatment was not permitted. And that was the first time I actually stepped away from dentistry and focused full-time on the marketing side of things. And the agency doubled in size. We sold our brands also throughout my residency. And by the time things opened back up and like the deal was still on for the ortho practice, my agency was double in size, and I had to really have that moment of introspection. Can I juggle being a business owner on both sides of my career, essentially? And made the difficult decision to pull out of that deal and focus full-time on the agency and on the e-commerce stuff. And haven't treated a patient since COVID. I moved down to Miami, and the rest is kind of history. Ended up selling my agency last year, still full-time with the holding company that acquired us. I love what I do and fortunate to have the experience that I've had.
So did you have marketing experience when your brother called you? Like when your brother called you and said, hey, let's do this thing. I mean, you were a dentist.
Yeah, no marketing experience at all, actually. I did barely
So
even
was your
use Instagram
brother
for
your
myself.
mentor in that aspect of the marketing world?
No.
Or was it just learn
He
as
just
you
had
go?
a great idea. Yeah, he was building these pages, identified an opportunity. I thought that opportunity was absolutely worth my time. I saw kind of where the puck was going in social media and influencer marketing, and just
I like the
figured
hockey
it.
reference, by the way. Great
Yep,
quote from
exactly.
Gretzky.
Yeah, so it was just self-taught. Everything was self-taught. It wasn't rocket science. I figured if I could study and become a dentist and then specialize, become an orthodontist and get, good grades on boards and everything like that, social media isn't exactly rocket science relative to what I already accomplished. So it was pretty easy to learn.
Interesting.
So what did that look like? What were you actually doing with the social media company?
The discussion here for me that is very useful is to use our combined experience as 4 people that went through dental school. We were all clinicians. We all saw patients. And at this point in time, we are not seeing patients at all. None of us, right? All of us, we found a different path, even though we are leveraging dentistry. We are leveraging the dental market. We are leveraging our dental network, found different paths, found different passions, and we built a different career. And why I think this conversation and learning from Jonathan is so interesting is because there are so many dentists out there that can have this aha moment and realize that even though clinical work can be amazing, there's so many other things that we can do, and even do other things focused on the dental market. So as we were talking before, Ingrid, you built a whole company serving orthodontists, and now you're running this company. Kyle, became a founder of AI company, and now it's a mental health coach. I moved away from clinical work to found a digital smile design company, and today running the company and developing software and serving dentists as an advisor, consultant, and service provider. Jonathan made this amazing move into marketing. I think this is the discussion here, and this is what we want to learn, share with the audience. Jonathan mentioned before we went live, learning how to take risks, because it is a very risky moment where you say, okay, I invested millions in my dental career, so many years and effort, but I see this other opportunity, and maybe this is going to become even bigger for me. That's a big, big step. Identifying that maybe the other thing, you're going to like it more. And that's what really matters. Also identifying the right opportunity, because at the end of the day, you can love something. If you're not successful, you're not going to like it. So you need to succeed on the other thing. Otherwise, you're going to regret leaving that clinical practice behind. So you need to find the opportunity. So taking risks, finding your passion, finding the opportunity, understanding yourself enough to make the move. I think that for me, the first big question here for Jonathan is, when was this aha moment? When what you kind of briefly mentioned? How did you identify that marketing, you were more passionate about marketing than about ortho? What was the opportunity that came in front of you that said, okay, this is it? There's no going back.
Yeah, it's a great question. I think it's as simple as the marketing just felt more like a video game to me. It felt more like a hobby than work. First time ever, like I said, that I spent full time on marketing was once COVID hit, and I was kind of forced to, and I just noticed myself waking up so excited to start the next day, and just it felt like I was playing a video game all day. And that's like the game of running any business. Feels like any day has endless potential. Like for my agency, tomorrow I could work with the biggest brand in the world and can just come overnight. There's always that feeling of excitement. And then I noticed, obviously, when you wake up and you're going to treat patients all day, like I loved what I did, don't get me wrong, but it felt like work. Sunday night, now you're like, oh man, do I really want to go in tomorrow? You know, Monday morning, you're waking up super early and you have a long, grueling day ahead of treating patients. So I just had that internal introspection, and I was honest with myself, like, hey, I love doing this, but I love doing this even more. And what's the better career? Obviously, dentistry is a great career, but there's more financial upside, and I had a higher floor on the marketing side of things. So
This is something that's so interesting because people have probably asked all of you guys this. People will say, well, gosh, isn't it difficult to have a startup, or isn't it difficult to be a speaker and travel all over the place and this and that? And I always tell people the same thing. Dentistry is so fucking hard that almost anything is easier.
Exactly.
Like people don't, no one realizes that unless you're a dentist, but treating patients every day, working in their mouth, like all of us, we loved it. Like I was very passionate about it, but it's fucking hard. And people are like, oh my gosh, the startup world. And isn't that, I'm like, way easier than dentistry, way easier. Being a speaker, way easier. Education, way easier. Nobody
No one
talks
talks
about
about it.
how fucking hard it is. And it's just like what Jonathan was saying, going into practice. And again, we love dentistry. We're passionate about it. But when you're like, oh, I just have to work on this computer. I just have to like have meetings with people. Like it's so much easier than dentistry. And I think nobody talks about that.
If you don't know what you're doing and you don't know what you're saying, it's not easier. It's not easy.
You have to
go
be a good
nowhere, right?
communicator. Yes.
Instead of saying follow your passion, I always prefer to say follow your talent. If you become good, you're going to love it, right? So I think it's pretty tricky to tell people to follow their passion, because many times people love doing things that they will never be great. It's going to be very hard for them because it's not their natural talent.
You obviously had two passions. You had dentistry and you had marketing. Do you think that for you, it was just you had more passion for marketing than dentistry?
Yeah, I mean, I love doing it way more. I mean, my marketing agency, in terms of like revenue, I don't think there is an orthodontic practice in the US that was producing as much revenue as my agency or my brands, right? So it's like financially speaking, I had already proven it. I've been doing it for over 5 years. It was getting better year over year and across numerous verticals.
This is not passion. This is talent.
Yeah, talent, but I love doing it too. I was so excited to wake up every day and do it, build the team and inspire and learn new things. And marketing is such an ever-changing field. Every year it changes drastically with AI and new platforms that arise, new content strategies, new technology, right? And like I love to consume all of that and be at the very forefront of marketing. Like I'm one of the social media marketing pioneers in e-commerce, and like that excites me. I read way more about, I'd also find myself in the past decade reading way more about just like the business world, entrepreneurship. I was excited more on the marketing side of things, of consuming knowledge, than, reading case studies on, orthodontics and literature and the new stuff that was coming out. So that was the work.
If you put aside the money and you put aside what you like the most, are you better? If you would focus on orthodontics, do you think you would be better at orthodontics or better at marketing?
Yes, it's tough. It's not really an apples to apples comparison. I mean, in terms of like, I guess what the barometer would be, like at the upper echelon of the industry, I mean, marketing, I was already there at that point because it was such a new field, so untapped. You can't go to, Harvard University for Facebook ads for e-commerce brand. It's like I was so early and so deep into it that like I was already at the pinnacle there.
How many people like you exist in the dental marketing world?
In the dental marketing world, not many. There's a lot of agencies out there for dentists. We actually are more geared towards the consumer brand space. We actually do have a lot of clients in the dental vertical within selling products, but we don't do a ton of marketing for, lead gen for the local practice.
But could you say that you're probably top 10 in US in what you do?
Yeah, I mean, our agency is one of 13 Shopify Plus partners in the US.
Can you imagine how hard it is to become top 10 best orthodontists in US?
I really resonate with that because this is one thing too, is like when Christians stopped practicing, we lost an incredible lab technician. When I was practicing, I felt like I was pretty good. I was writing research. I was speaking on the top podium, showing my clinical work. However, I felt like I would see so many other dentists that were so good or better than me. And what am I really adding? But then for me, my path away from the clinical practice started with the speaking world. And I started speaking and saying, you know what? I'm a better speaker than this person. I'm a better speaker than this person. Oh, maybe I can add more value by speaking than I can with doing clinical dentistry, even though I thought I was okay. I was pretty good.
Exactly. That's my point here.
I actually have a contrary opinion. I decided to become an orthodontist when I was 8, spent my whole life working towards becoming one, got to ortho residency, and I was so depressed. I called my dad and I was like, Dad, I don't know what I thought I was doing, but I actually don't like ortho. And I was crying. I was sobbing. And my dad was laughing at me. And he said, Ingrid, no one likes something that they don't know how to do. Put in the hours, just focus on getting the craft these next few years. So when I hear your story, Jonathan, what I think is you just had more hours in marketing. Like you were just better at it when you had to make a decision.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point.
But you're saying the same thing. You said just put the hours. If you have the talent, it's going to be a shortcut. If you put the hours on something that you don't have the talent, it's going to take 10 times more years to actually become just great, just good, not the best. If you are, that's the short, finding your talent is the shortcut. You need to be pragmatic. I tell young people, just be pragmatic. Don't row against the stream. Don't fight against your natural talent. Everybody has that. You put the hours, Ingrid, to become a good orthodontist, and you became a good orthodontist, but then you went do something else. I can tell you that probably you have more talent to do what you're doing now than to be just becoming an orthodontist. You are already an entrepreneur that is also top in the country as a young age. So you made the right decision. You followed your talent beyond orthodontics, and you were brave enough to say, I became good at this, but I can be even better doing something else. I can make a difference. I can leave a bigger legacy. And that's what Kyle was saying. And that's what Jonathan did with marketing.
I just want to go ahead and ask you, how do you think that dentists should transform their passion into a good business? What does that look like? What's your advice?
Tired of bouncing between ClinChecks, refinements, and Invisalign bills? Serving patients is what you do best. Leave the back and forth to us. With TwoFront, you get to unwind, fully automate your Invisalign practice, and watch your patients receive the highest level of care without losing any control. From closing your patients to designing ClinChecks, managing insurance and compliance, your TwoFront team does it all. Think of it as a splash of simplicity. Use one simple platform to have full visibility of your patients in treatment. Dentists and orthodontists across 150 practices have jumped in, seeing their Invisalign production soar without adding any extra to your time. TwoFront members have seen a 350% increase in production, adding over $100,000 in profit to their bottom line. Whether you're on the court or in the office, TwoFront helps you ace your goals. See how TwoFront can transform your practice. Visit mytwofront.com/Ingrid to book your demo and dive in today.
Yeah, I think they just need to introspect and identify what parts of their day they really don't like and what parts of the day they really enjoy doing. And the more that they could double down on the things that they enjoy doing and carve out the things they don't like doing or the things that make them upset, whether it's a procedure they don't like doing, whether it's a type of patient if they're a pain in the ass to deal with, or whether it's an assistant in their office that's just not cutting it and it's making their lives more difficult, you have to figure out how to optimize your day. And when you're happier, you're going to do better work, you're going to produce better results, and ultimately you'll make more money.
Does that also apply to clinical practice versus business management? So let's say you're a practice owner, you find you really like doing the business side and you don't like doing the clinical side, or vice versa, which is most of the time. I love doing the clinical side, but the business side frustrates me. I'm not good at it. I'm not good at communication. Do you recommend that people in that case, let's say, partner with a DSO or DPO, or do you think that they delegate, get like an interim CFO?
Exactly. Yeah, no, if you love practicing and you don't like the business side of things, you probably should not be a practice owner. then it would make sense to be an associate, or maybe if you had a practice, then you partner with a DSO that kind of takes over the back office side of things. And on the flip side, if you really don't like practicing, but you love businesses and you love, being an entrepreneur, then you hire dentists, you open a few different practices, you expand, and you focus on the aspects that you love doing.
I really like what you said. Double down on what you enjoy. I love it. Double down on what you enjoy. So you need to identify that. And that brings me to another question here, because double down on what you like the most means that you understand that any type of project requires many things to happen. You're identifying the ones that you don't like and the ones that you like. Basically means you need to learn to work as a team. You need to learn to delegate. You need to learn to become a leader. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
How many people you had in your company?
Yeah, 100 full-timers.
Wow.
How did you become a leader? How was that process for you?
When you're in a fast-growing company, the hardest thing is actually to delegate, because you're so protective over everything. And if you become a bottleneck to the company, you're just getting in the way for your own company's growth. So I would say, you just have to find the core people that you trust, take care of them, treat them well, and then delegate all the things that you shouldn't be doing. Get yourself outside of the inside of the business matters, right? You should be working on the business if you're a fast growing company, not inside the business. So find the people you trust, delegate to them, and then everyone grows underneath you and you get elevated that way.
This is very challenging for dentists on the clinical side, on the business side. We like to control the margin of this and how much we're tipping this tooth and the shade and the translucency and the embrasure. And, we love to have that control. And I think that becomes really challenging for dentists, which is why most dentists aren't able to scale their business, even on a practice level, right? Because they don't want their assistants to do their provisionals, because their provisionals won't be as good as if they did it. But maybe it doesn't need to be as good as if you did it, just needs to be clinically sound. I know I struggled with this for sure, especially in my practice. What's interesting for me was when I wasn't doing clinical dentistry, I didn't struggle as much with delegation. I still do, even on my education side. I still struggle a little bit, but not as much as I did with clinical practice. And I'm wondering what people here think about that.
How do we grow with quality? Because that's the dilemma.
Yeah, that's any business.
Trust but measure. That's my motto.
You can't just delegate and then just let it go to pasture. You have to check in. If you give initiatives out, you delegate, you always put a deadline on there so you know when you're going to revisit it and review the work. Slowly you end up delegating more and more, and you kind of loosen the reins a little bit, but never lose full control. Just always pop into random areas of the business and just take a look at kind of what's being delivered, and you could uncover a lot there.
I like that. The other thing that I would focus on that I think most dentists don't focus on is when you're delegating something, you need to set the safety expectation. Hey, John, I want you to do this procedure or this task. However, this is as much on you as it is on me to explain this to you correctly. So you're setting that safety for the employee at that time, and say, if there's something you don't understand, or if there's something I'm not explaining well, I want you to come to me and tell me. Because I think if you don't set that safety, the person you're delegating to becomes very worried on what they're going to do.
And you have to, as a leader, you have to be approachable, or else your team doesn't come to you, things fester, and that's where things get blown out of control. But maybe the person you delegated to is not confident and doesn't want to, look bad in front of their boss.
Yes.
How would you figure out what you should delegate versus what you should do yourself?
In dentistry, you're saying?
I'm kind of saying in general, outside of dentistry, right? When you're owning a business, I think if dentists can take this as business owners, what do you delegate and what do you not?
Great question. I think you'd have to think about leverage. You should only, if you're the highest ranking person in the company, you need to focus on the things that have the most leverage for your business, will drive the biggest impact. If it's technically execution work, tedious tasks, take a look at your calendar. What are you doing all day? Trim meetings that are unnecessary and trim tasks that are monotonous and can be handled by some lesser position, essentially. Those are the things that you delegate, and then you focus on the things that are going to drive new business, drive service growth, or any new products or features that are going to enable your business to grow. And then everything underneath is what gets passed off.
I think with that, you can go to the Eisenhower matrix. So the Eisenhower matrix looks at important versus urgent. You see what's important but not urgent. One is to delegate, one is to do, one is to schedule, and one is to delete.
How do you think dentists should go about building their personal brand?
Building a personal brand is critical in this day and age. Just with social media, everyone consumes their information on kind of how you're perceived in the public. Whether you're an associate or a business owner, entrepreneur, whatever you are, the personal brand will always pay dividends and it compounds over time. I think you need to, the longer the time in the market of building that personal brand, the larger that personal brand will be. The more doors it opens, the more opportunities it brings, the more revenue, more growth for you as a person or entrepreneur. It's something that I've really been focusing on for the past couple of years. You got to put yourself out there. You need to identify who your target audience is and what pain points potentially that a target audience has and how your service solution kind of solves the problems of your target audience. And that's how you frame the content. Can't tell you how many opportunities just building the personal brand has brought me, speaking opportunities, new business opportunities, new clients. Everything kind of revolves around the personal brand. And that's probably the biggest lead gen funnel we have right now for our agency.
How long do you think it takes to develop a personal brand?
It takes at least a year or two to get traction. You need to just get started on it. And I would say once you get to a tipping point of a few thousand followers, then it's really more exponential growth in nature and things start picking up. If you just find your voice and just jump in the pool and just do it, you'll start learning the types of content that really works and resonates and the types of content that doesn't. And then you double down on those things that start working well and you iterate and you keep pounding from there, essentially.
I think that's an important timeline to set for people, because I know that a lot of people now want this instant gratification. If you're saying, oh, I did my personal brand for 3 months, it wasn't growing and nothing happened. Like, I think for me, my personal brand continues to evolve as I change, right? I mean, my personal brand used to be very much, I am kind of perio-restorative implant guy, right? That was what I did. That was what I spoke on. That was what all my followers wanted. And then it changed a little bit and it was kind of, okay, now I'm doing AI and startup world and speaking. And then now it's a lot more on the mental health side. Still have some of those other aspects. It is a long haul for sure.
And it doesn't need to even be, you don't want to get too niche on your content when you're building a personal brand, or else you'll never grow the personal brand. I think it's important to identify like your passions in life, what you're really good at, and kind of combining all of those things into your personal brand, essentially. And the brand can go anywhere from written content, audio content, visual content, in real life content, at Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, TikTok, podcasts, speaking engagements, things like that. I even launched a newsletter this year and kind of figure out how I can come up with the same type of content and most efficiently disseminate that content across channels. So I think it's not just the message you're sending, but how you get it out there. Like, you could have the best voice in the world, but if not enough people are hearing that voice or the points you're making, and it doesn't go very far. So you need to think about the strategy to get it out there.
From the dental world, do you think that dentists should make their practice a personal brand? Let me preface this with, when we started on Instagram a long time ago with my practice, we tried to make the practice its own brand and post on the practice. And what we realized was people didn't connect with the practice. We had this practice Instagram, and then me and my partner Matt had our personal Instagrams. And what we realized were people wanted to follow people. They didn't necessarily want to follow businesses as much. And we definitely struggled with that.
That's a great point you bring up. It's the same, even with my personal brand and my company. Obviously, my personal brand is growing way more than the company, but the company gets all the benefits from me growing my personal brand because people see what I do, they follow me, and then they come in for my company. And my company has figured out really good ways to repurpose my content into blog content. So now our SEO presence is going up for the company. If I talk a lot about a certain topic in digital marketing or e-commerce, my company turns my tweets or LinkedIn posts into a blog article, then people are searching about that topic. They end up finding the company. So I think it's finding your way as a person. People will then get awareness about your brand and your business, and it's a win-win ecosystem for everything.
Yeah, I really like how you said that. Brand or the company benefits from the personal brand of the person leading it or involved in that. That's a really good takeaway.
Yep.
It's true. I didn't think about that.
That's exactly from my experience, that's exactly what we did, what worked for us. And initially, people don't want to follow. If they don't know you and they don't know your company, they don't want to start by following your company. You're going to grow your personal brand. People will start following you. That doesn't mean that you shouldn't create a channel for your company. It just comes behind your personal brand, piggybacking on it. We saw that our company brand channel was not moving at all. I was moving up, and at a certain point, then I started to drag the company profile. And today, it became to a point that I'm growing less and the company is growing more and getting closer to me.
Wow. As someone here who hasn't invested a ton of time in personal brand, how do you suggest that people get started? Like, I tried to film one little video and it took me 2 hours because I just sounded like a bumbling idiot.
I think personal brand for a dentist and a business owner, entrepreneur is a different type of approach. As a dentist, you need to think about, like, what's going to bring in new patients. Think about your service, maybe before and after pictures. You want people to build trust, social proof that you do great work. But for personal brand, for me and my company, it's all about the framework of thinking. So like for me, anytime I think of something, when I go through my day and I find something that I thought was very insightful, and I would type a message to my team in Slack or email or whatever it is, every time I had like an aha moment within my day and I shared it with my team, I always found out that would be great content as a LinkedIn post or a tweet. Because if my team would find it insightful, that means the whole industry would. Rather than typing these long-winded Slack messages or whatnot, I would put it in a tweet and LinkedIn post and then share the link to that to my team. And they're responsible for reading it, essentially. And that was just a high leverage way of building personal brand without sacrificing a ton more extra time than I already had been.
And guaranteeing some initial likes.
Exactly. Yeah. And if they engage with the content, that's even better. It games the algorithm and you get more reach.
If they don't, they are fired.
Exactly. Yeah, no, I encourage everyone within the company to build a personal brand just to motivate themselves, because your voice does get amplified. If it's just me posting all day, that gets a little played out. If it's 5 people from my company, 6 people, 7 people, it's like, now we're establishing the company as having a whole cadre of leaders within the industry, and that expands the reach. We play off each other. So I would encourage, as a business owner and a leader, is encourage your people to also build personal brands. It'll help the company. It'll help them as a professional.
Ingrid, I would say that the challenging part about creating a personal brand is it takes time. And that's why so many people don't do it. And that's why if you're the person that puts in the time, I remember when I started taking my Instagram posts and doing them on Keynote. Like, it wasn't just a picture or a video. Like, I would make, like, this is when I was teaching more about implants, but I would make, I would draw something here, and this is how bone loss works, and I would put the reference. And I started doing that, and at the time, that was what was working. My personal brand grew. But I knew that there were dentists that wouldn't take the time to do that. I think that's why, if you're the person that takes the time to do the personal brand, it becomes this wide open ocean for you.
And it's consistency too. You can't just do it once a month and expect to see results. It's daily. You have to commit to it, or else it doesn't really compound.
But Jonathan, do you agree that also investing the time to do it without having a strategy behind, as I see most of the people, it's a waste of time? If things are working for you without doing it, don't feel bad about it. If you're going to put the energy, make sure that you have a real reason to do that, meaning you have a strategy. You created this funnel. You want to grab the attention, not just to show off, to impress your friends. That's a waste. What type of strategies that you guys help your clients implement to really take advantage of the energy to build a persona online?
Yeah, I mean, the number one thing is really research. There's so many people out there with great personal brand. Take a look at find out like what your style most closely resonates with, and see like what are they doing? What's their strategy? How can I incorporate my own touch on something similar that's already working in this industry, wherever you want to build that personal brand. And so it's like you're not starting from square one, you're starting from square 5 already. I think that's like the easiest, lowest hanging fruit. And then the content strategy just comes back to like, at the end of the day, what are you trying to accomplish with the personal brand? Bring in more business for your company, to gain more followers. Like, what's the end goal? And then what are the reasons why people would kind of either want to follow you or come into your company's business, and then incorporate the content strategy around that. So if they have a certain pain point, say you're an orthodontist, someone has crooked teeth, like why would they get braces? Focus on those pain points, figure out how to show that your service or your solution is the solve for that pain point that your target audience has. So it's kind of reverse engineering the content strategy in that regard.
Something not from social media, something that you could share that goes beyond the things that everybody's doing, right? So everybody is picking a hobby. I'm good at this. I'm going to create this persona around it. I'm going to share before and afters. I'm going to empower my staff on my Instagram. I'm going to post a schedule consistency. So every week, 2-3 times, similar period, create that routine around the post. Can you share something that you found out that you discovered as something powerful that most people didn't realize yet?
In terms of like a personal brand strategy or like for the business or in social media in general?
Let's say more towards the personal brand as a dentist, as a doctor,
Well, you need diverse content. You can't just post like before and afters all day. You can't be too salesy. You have to mix in, you have to provide value to the audience without selling constantly. So it's educational stuff, diverse content, images, video, user-generated content, carousels. If you mix it in, you keep it fresh, people want to keep following. Keep doing the same thing over and over. It's not very interesting. It gets tired out after a while.
I want to ask directly, I can't tell if you've answered this question already. What is your biggest advice for dentists looking to build a big practice from a marketing standpoint? Is it to invest in personal brand?
I would say personal brand and the practice. It's all about being present on especially social media. You need to think about like where consumers in your local area hang out, right? They're going to be on the search engine. They're going to be going to Google and figuring out who's the best practice near me. So you need to have an SEO strategy and a website content strategy. Then they're also going to go to TikTok, especially over half of Gen Z right now uses TikTok as a search engine over Google. So you need to have a video strategy on TikTok for your practice at least, because if you don't have one and your competitor does, they're the ones that are going to pick up, those patients essentially. So, and there's Instagram.
So are they searching like dentist, Austin, Texas on TikTok?
Yeah, exactly. There's TikTok as a search engine, especially for local businesses, restaurants, travel, anything like that. People are using that as a discovery platform for location-based businesses.
And so does that mean your video has to have hashtags on that? It has to talk about it in the video?
Yep. So your location is tagged. You could tag your location in the videos. And that's on Instagram. That's on TikTok. Information you put in that post, you have to be very careful. That's what the algorithms use to serve your content to the right people at the right place at the right time. Do hashtag research. Make sure you put your location in there. The more information you feed it, the better. And then what I would also say, if we're talking about like TikTok and Instagram, there are research tools out there with trending content. There's trending audio, there's trending hashtags, there's trending video, and there's also content gap research you could do and figure out how to tie those trending search queries or topics into your content. Then you have an increased chance of going viral. You're going to have your practice start growing. It all comes back to the research.
If you're not looking, so you said half of Gen Z are looking in TikTok to search for anything, including dentists. If your demographic is not Gen Z, then you don't need to waste your time there, right?
I disagree with that because Gen Z is getting older and older and older, and they're actually going to be the largest part of our customer base pretty soon across any business. If you forget about Gen Z because you think, oh, they're so young, they're so far away, they're actually much closer to being the dominant target market very soon.
For people like us, everyone on this show who market to dentists, would you recommend being on TikTok?
Marketing to dentists, I would say, so TikTok has an interesting reputation. Everyone thinks it's all Gen Z. Gen Z are the content creators on TikTok. They're not necessarily all of the consumers of content on TikTok. Like when we have, some of our biggest spending clients on TikTok ads right now, their target market is not Gen Z. People that are parent age, so anywhere from 30 to 50. These types of people might not be represented by the content on TikTok, but a lot of them are consuming content. I think of it as like you need a strategy on TikTok and Instagram and figure out how, and fortunately, Reels is such a big component of Instagram now, so a lot of that content can translate to TikTok. So you need to figure out like how you get your short form content, disperse that on TikTok and Instagram efficiently. All the content, you have to be present on every platform. That's really what it comes down to. It's TikTok, it's Instagram, it's Facebook, and it's Google search. Those are the main drivers of business for pretty much 99% of businesses out there now.
And all
It's
of
a lot
these,
of work. Yeah, like the average dentist. Yeah.
The good thing is you could hire these Gen Z kids right out of high school or college to be your either work as a front desk person or an assistant, and you give them another hat to wear as your content creator. They're all talent, just like we're really good at computers, kind of built into our education. Content creation for people of that age group, or it's an innate talent they all have. So it's figure out how to incorporate that into a job description if you don't have like a full-time role available.
If you don't have the size of a practice to have somebody full-time just for that, you should have somebody that can do that as well. Every practice should have a person that is in charge of content generation.
Exactly. I think every practice, if you're not present on social media or have that content strategy, you're not going to grow as well as the guy around the corner that does have that strategy.
Yeah, because realistically, like we started off this conversation talking about how hard dentistry is already, right? Like I can imagine traveling an hour to my office, working all day, seeing patients, coming home, like seeing your family, and then try to make some content. Like it just feels like a big ask, like a tall order, especially if reels are the medium, and reels take a long time. I mean, Kyle, do reels take you a long time?
Not that much anymore, but they used to.
And it comes back to delegation. Like I don't edit my creative content. I actually am horrible at editing video or pictures. I delegate that. The written content is all me, but maybe the content ideas are all me, but you got to hold people accountable to the things that you aren't good at or the things that are taking up too much time that you shouldn't be doing. Reels take a long time, and it's the editing component. Shooting the actual reel is a minute, 30 seconds. Maybe you have to reshoot it 3 times. We're talking about 5 minutes. Maybe it takes you 3 to 5 minutes to come up with an idea and kind of a script that you'd want to follow. Not that time consuming, especially as you get better and you do it more, it's going to take less and less time.
It sounds like dentists must build a personal brand. They also must make content. There's no way around it. You want to build a big business, you got to make some content. My last question for you is outside actual marketing, what would be your final message for dentists?
Outside of marketing, final message for dentists would really be to just step out of your comfort zone. I think dentists are so tunnel visioned in a good way, I guess, in practice. We've been trained to look at millimeters and centimeters our whole entire lives. Sometimes you miss the big picture or you're afraid to step out of your comfort zone, things that'll help enable personal or professional growth. When you step out and you kind of understand what's working well, understand where you want to go and figure out the steps on how you got to get there. And a lot of times that won't happen within that 9 to 5 day to day treating patients all day. You got to think about outside the box things to get where you want to go.
I love it.
Love it.
That's it.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming onto the show. Jonathan, where can people find you?
Yeah, I'm most active on LinkedIn, Jonathan Snow, and Twitter at Dr. Jonathan Snow. I also have a newsletter if anyone cares about marketing and e-commerce. That's the main focus of my newsletter. blog.jonathansnow.com is where you could subscribe.
Well, thank you so much. Thanks again.
It was a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot, guys. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Get the f up out the chair. Whoa.
This episode is brought to you by TwoFront, the only all-in-one platform for dentists to offer full-service Invisalign with no lab bills, CE courses, or additional chair time. Tired of dealing with Invisalign ClinChecks, refinements, bills, insurance, and compliance issues? With all the tools you need in one simple-to-use platform that you can manage from your phone, TwoFront makes it easy to grow the Invisalign arm of your practice without having to worry about insurance, closing the patient, having to do complex ClinChecks, manage patient compliance issues, and so much more. Simply add a TwoFront intake form into your check-in process to start signing up patients for unlimited complimentary evaluations by your TwoFront orthodontist and watch your practice grow from your dashboard. Get paid upfront by TwoFront and let your team at TwoFront handle the rest. Over 150 practices around the United States use TwoFront to grow their bottom line and offer patients the highest quality care with no extra chair time. Go to my2front.com to sign up for a demo and start offering the #1 service wanted by your patients today without the hassle. Experience the power of partnering with a full service top orthodontic team with no overhead and grow your practice today.